Good morning, Corky here. Want to thank those folks that have been viewing my videos on guitar and commenting, and I really appreciate it. A fellow named Jake, you're out there, asked me to share uh, my life in music, my music story, and there's a reason why that I'm got my Yamaha acoustic in my lap for this one because as a working musician who never um, made it big or you know broke through the industry, most of your life is going to be spent playing acoustic if you're playing useful music. This this story all began with my mom passing away when I was 11 years old. And there's an introduction to a book on the life of Paul McCartney called Many Years From Now. And it describes a profile of a young person whose mom passes away, then they attend art school, then drop out of art school to join a rock and roll band. And that profile is so many, all of my heroes, music heroes pretty much. And the time of this particular uh, state of being, was the 60s. So in 1964, the Beatles came to America. At this point, I was just drawing cartoons and things, and that would become a part of the music scene and all that to come. But it was the British invasion. Now, I was only in the fourth grade, so I wasn't really aware of what was happening. But my older sister, that was 9 years older than me, Judy, she knew and understood what was happening. So she would take me with her to stand in line to buy the Beatle albums when they were released. I mean, people literally lined the sidewalks to buy them. And then when the Beatles came to America in '64, she carried me to um, the auditorium in Greensboro, North Carolina, to see the Beatles' closed circuit concert of their Washington, D.C. concert. And the girls were screaming just as loud in the auditorium as they were in Washington, where it was being filmed. The Beach Boys opened up, almost got booed off the stage. Um, so I was pretty much hooked after this experience. My sister had a French twist, black hair, black dress, and beat her high heels, the heels off of her high heels on the balcony rail, screaming for the Beatles. So from 64 to about 66, 67, of course, mom passes away in 65. I'm asking for a bass guitar. I'm asking for a violin shaped bass guitar because that's what Paul McCartney played. uh, my family couldn't afford a Hofner at that point, or maybe we just didn't know where they were. But in 1967, I turned a teenager in the summer of love, and I was all beatled up, and I got a violin-shaped uh, Telestar bass and a Silvertone bass amp, and I started playing a garage band. The the sad part of this story is I probably never even learned to scale on bass at this point. I did have bell bottom trousers and turtleneck shirts, so we got to play on TV. And it was very humiliating because of the the uh, the guy was mixing the sound for the TV show, and at one point he let just the bass ring out by itself, and it was me, and it was not good. So, I'm still wrestling with this. I'm now interested in rock and roll. I'm a teenager. And so uh, I got in a band, a garage band or two, and met who would become my best friend in my life, Alan Steele, my music partner. He was a drummer, and so we started playing in bands together. So the time is 1969, Woodstock, Jimi Hendrix, and all that. And so I wanted to switch to guitar, so my dad bought me a $14.95 Silvertone acoustic guitar. And the best of my recollection, I think I learned to play it so fast that I actually played at a gig where we got a little money with that $14 guitar. Your passion, you know, it, it's obvious when people are entering into the guitar world if they have the passion or not, because at these different points it doesn't matter whether the thing plays well or if it's expensive. You just are committed to playing the thing. And so started playing that Silvertone acoustic. By the time, well, it's 69, 67, Cream hit with Sunshine of Your Love and White Room, and Eric Clapton came into my life. Also, Beatles went to India in 68, and so the whole hippie thing was going on, and I have basically been frozen in that time period. But a band developed. Uh, the rhythm section were far more advanced than me, uh, but I was committed to learning, so I got a hold of a Gibson Melody Maker Electric. I liked it because it was similar to the one that Leslie West of Mountain played. And so with this Melody Maker, I started playing blues, and we heard about the Allman Brothers, and we were attending some of the early Allman Brothers concerts in college auditoriums. 71, when their Fillmore East album broke, we had been seeing them a lot. So we were very familiar with that album. It was just like a postcard of where we'd been. And also in 71, I moved up to a Martin D18 acoustic. Because what's going on here, it's not just the Allman Brothers, Eric Clapton, and Clapton entered the Beatle world as far as I was concerned with While My Guitar Gently Weeps. So that was his endorsement for me, was George Harrison using him on the White Album. So my influences, Beatles, maybe not so much George Harrison as Clapton, became more because I began to become aware of blues music. And I still have the album of Mississippi Fred McDowell, I Do Not Play No Rock and Roll. And I think I actually have the actual album that I got, and that would have been about 70, 69 or 70, 71. Um, Not very long after that, this band that I was in called Little Arliss was a blues band, but we did other things. Um, the bass player's mom agreed to buy me, she offered to buy me a used Fender Stratocaster, which was like $195 or something like that. And so I passed the Melody Maker on to my partner, Alan Steele, the guy that was playing drums in the early band with me. He went to rhythm. We were both learning guitar at the same time. Dropped out of high school and started learning the guitar about 69. So now there's a whole nother story that I could do about my educational life, because I do have a doctorate degree and I teach intercultural studies in universities. Um, but just let it lie there that I'm dropped out of high school and I'm wanting to be Eric Clapton. Now, at the same time, uh, all kinds of acoustic music is breaking out. The singer-songwriter period, James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Cat Stevens, endless number of them. So I'm already trying to learn acoustic, like James Taylor, uh, or Crosby, Stills and Nash. I'm learning David Crosby chords. Um, I'm starting to finger pick a little bit, uh, but primarily in the Jackson Brown, that world, and most of us were doing singer-songwriter things. So we're writing music at this point, uh, still playing electric, garage band music, blues. Um, but in order to carry the song yourself, you're going to, um, you know, you're going to learn to sing if you're a singer. I sang. Um, so we're doing singer-songwriter stuff, and my partner and I, we did coffee houses, and we did, some house concerts and parties and a few gigs here and there, but nothing to make any money. So anyway, I wanted to go back to Atlanta, my original home, and live, because the Allman Brothers thing brought about Southern rock. And so this was my thing, Southern rock. Uh, it's not just that I live in the South, but Southern rock is our music. And so I wanted to go to Atlanta because that was such a center for Southern rock at that time. Capricorn Studios was in Macon. And so my roommate at that time and I moved there, and I was trying to play acoustic gigs. And, I'm doing some blues, you know. But I had a collapse of sorts. I mean, I went downhill, drugs and alcohol, which is the occupational hazard of nightlife musicians. And so that's when I uh, turned to the Christian faith. So I had this faith conversion in '74, and this is the Jesus movement, or what they call in this movie the Jesus Revolution. So if you watch that movie, you see exactly what brought me in to the Christian faith. Um, so for a couple of years, I'm playing what they call Christian music, Christian rock, and it would eventually become CCM, contemporary Christian music. But I met this woman at church in 1976, and her family had a Southern gospel group, and so they invited me to travel with them and play with them. And so that was where I learned playing flats and sharps. And, at this point I'm playing a Telecaster custom, and I'm using a Guild acoustic. So in the Southern gospel world, I learned a lot of different licks. And of course, what a lot of people don't know is even in these contemporary Christian albums like the Imperials or the Downings, or uh, the Rambos, uh, and Elvis is in the background of all of that. He's been, you know, constant presence since through the British invasion, because you went back, if you got into rock and roll, then you were got to go back to the original articles, and Elvis is one. And he's in that contemporary Christian music world because he makes more uh, gold records on gospel than he ever did in rock and roll. So with this going on and this Christian rock, contemporary Christian music coming out, there's a lot of rock studio guitar players that are playing on the records. So a lot of the riffs are very similar. Uh, so I was doing that pretty much through the 80s, early 80s. I became a pastor in 80. And so the music, I just followed the music through in the church, but it was not just typical church music. It was, we had coffee houses and things like that to play in. So you got to still do the groovy music. At one point in that Southern Gospel group, I'm thinking it's 1976 to about 81 or 2, I switched to bass, got me a Gibson Grabber bass because I saw that Rick Danko played one in the band. And that's when I really learned to play bass. So now we're up to like 1978. And, you know, I went to college late in life. I got my GED, never let it go to my head. And so in the 80s, I went to college, and then I would end up moving back to Atlanta from North Carolina, and I got a Les Paul Studio in 1989. 1990, I got a Gibson SG, which I adored. Wished I still had it. And then when I moved to Newport, Rhode Island, to be a pastor up there, I traded the SG for an Alvarez acoustic electric because I had to have a working instrument. So end up leaving Rhode Island in 94 and moving to Tennessee. And in Tennessee, I got a Tascam multi-tracker and started recording at home. Now I had already played on 3 albums in the studio in South Carolina and Georgia. So I had some experience in the studio. But now I start this home recording. And I would, between 1997 and the present day, I have 10 albums that I recorded, home recordings, 100 songs. Just a few covers in there. I wrote a lot of the music and played all the instruments, guitar, bass, drums, Hammond organ, piano. I had been playing piano all the way since 1970, I think, or 71, but not seriously. And then I also been playing mandolin from 1973 and to the present day, and I've probably made more progress on mandolin in the last 3 years than I did all the many years. So I'm not in a band since 1995. I'm just doing solo stuff. In 2006, I got invited to go to work for an agency that served developmental disability people, all adults. And I never became a music therapist, although I attended music therapy conventions and founded a music program. And that's been a big part of my life. And now I have a grandson who's on the spectrum, so I was well prepared for that with all the training that I had to go through. They needed, I think, my master's degree in counseling for the agency, and they invited me, but I did learn all that disability stuff. Sorry this video seems to be long, but I'm 70 years old, so it's a long life. Then 2015 through 2020, I'm out west, okay, and I'm sitting in with Native American blues bands, which is really interesting, and Native American Christian worship music, contemporary style. All the while, blues and gospel, blues and rock and roll are my primary genres. There's this other period that I want to mention when Chet Atkins, when I was in Tennessee, I became a member of the Chet Atkins Society, and I got to go to the meeting in Nashville and be with Chet and a relatively small group in the audience and be a member of that society. And that caused me to learn some fingerstyle. And so a lot of Chet Atkins, you know. So starting to learn fingerstyle guitar, and I spent a lot of time working on this. I have to because it's complicated. But I had already been heavily influenced by Paul Simon, the Beatles, and James Taylor. So I'm already beginning to think in terms of, fingerstyle. And so I'm all in Chet Atkins, and then I learned about Mississippi John Hurt, which since 2020, I've been living down here in Alabama, which is just a hop and a skip from the Mississippi Delta. And I've taken people to the Delta over the years on blues tours, history of the Delta. So Mississippi John Hurt becomes important to me, and especially recently, and I start learning some of his fingerstyle, like like Do Lord. What that utilizes is your thumb is doing the left-hand side of the piano, the left hand of the piano, so it's boom. Call it boom chick, bass chord. So then these fingers are picking out the melody. So that's my entry into the world of fingerstyle. I presently play a Stratocaster, Strat, and a Tele over the years have been the big thing. So influences, Beatles, Clapton, Santana's in there too, big time, and very close to my heart. My spirituality is connected to Santana. Hendrix, obviously. And then in the Christian world, Phil Keaggy. I followed Phil Keaggy and went to see him a lot. And then in the Delta blues, country blues, Mississippi John Hurt. So these are kind of my influences. I hope this answers a question. But it's been a life in music, and like Gus says on Lonesome Dove, it's really been a party. Y'all have a good one.